Well, here we are about to make one of the most unnecessary videos that ever needs to be made in 2026, but we're gonna revisit the topic about paste and the proper application method and what is best and what isn't and what is wasteful, because anytime you do a video where you show applying thermal paste, this comes up a million times. In fact, it's even gotten to the point to where we specifically don't even show the clips of me putting thermal paste on because we're so sick of that shit. But I decided, everyone in the past has taken pieces of plexi and such and then applied paste and then just pushed on it to see what happens. I feel like that's flawed. I personally wanted to see what happens under the proper mounting tension that you would see with some sort of a CPU mount or holder, because we can all push down with whatever weight we weigh, right? And that's way more than you would get with any normal mounting surface or mounting mechanism. So I want to see what happens. We're going to do both AMD and Intel because they're different shaped CPUs, so they might have different results. Today's video is sponsored by Grizzly, and if you're building a custom loop, you need to check out DeltaMate, their first complete lineup of custom water cooling hardware. DeltaMate is built for uncompromising thermal performance, but what really makes it different is how much it simplifies the whole process through modularity and precision manufacturing. And instead of needing a mountain of random fittings to finish one loop, DeltaMate uses just 9 modular SKUs to create over 20 traditional configurations, so you get way more flexibility with way less hassle. Everything has a consistent outer diameter, installs cleanly with an 8mm hex key, and even includes rotatable aesthetic covers so you can keep the build looking perfect no matter how your tubing routes. And whether you're running soft or hard tubing, DeltaMate supports multiple sizes including 16mm, plus newly added 14mm hard tube and 13mm soft tube. It also comes in black and matte nickel, so it'll match pretty much any build theme. Check out Grizzly DeltaMate at the link below. Now here's the method that we're gonna use. We're gonna do the P method, PEA. And this is also going to sound very sexual, but I don't mean it that way. But we are going to do the P method, we are going to do the line method, we are going to do the X method, and we are going to do the spread method. So those 5, right? P, X, line, spread? No, it's 4. Oh, Europeans start with the thumb as 1, and Americans start with the 1, or the index, the 1 finger is 1, whatever. Right? So P, line, X, spread. Okay, those are the 4 we're gonna do. Now, here's the thing you have to understand. When you look at the top of the CPU, this is a heat spreader. This is just a mechanism that's touching the top of the die, and it's designed to absorb heat and spread it into a larger area. That way you can have a big cooler touching it and have more surface area moving the heat. But as you can see, if you look at Intel, and then you look at AMD, they're very different shapes now. The AMD actually got a little bit smaller and a little bit more focused, but it's got these weird prongs on the edge, which really, although they do touch the heat spreader, getting the paste all the way out to there really isn't that important. But if this is a perfect square, that means already the P method would be, I would assume, fine on AMD because it will spread into a circle all the way to the edges as long as you have enough. However, if you look at the rectangular shape of Intel, that probably won't be the case. You'll end up with probably the top and the bottom being, depending on how much you use, being non-covered. And which means on the sides, to get enough to cover the top and the bottom, it would start oozing out the sides and getting into the edge of the substrate and down into the socket and such. And thermal paste in the socket and on the pins is never fun to clean out. It doesn't hurt anything, but it can definitely inhibit contact between pins and pads on the CPU, which can lead to problems. But if you take a look at the actual CPU die itself on Intel, this is a delidded 10900. No, it's not 10900K. It's 13900K. This is a delidded 13900K, but you can see the actual die is a very small fraction of the actual heat spreader if I put that next to it. So ideally you would think as long as you have at the very minimum coverage over that area, then you're probably gonna be fine. But the engineers have decided a heat spreader is necessary, so we wanna make sure we're covering the entire heat spreader. Now I don't have a delidded AMD, but you can see right here on the screen what the lithography looks like underneath. And AMD is interesting because all of the Intel chips look like this, just with a single, even though this is not a chiplet design, but it's E-core, P-core, IO die, all of that into one lithography, if you will. AMD splits it up. You've got an IO die and you've got your CCDs. Now you can have a single CCD and 2 CCDs on mainstream CPUs and up to 8 of them on Threadripper, or even more, I guess. But I digress. On AMD, if you go to a single CCD, so it'll be, right, IO die, CCD, CCD, But if you only have a single CCD, it doesn't center it. It just, the other CCD is not there, but it's off center. So that actually means you would want to make sure that you get the paste at least above where the IO die and the CCD is. If the IO die doesn't have good coverage, it can start to throttle, which will hold back the CCD, and vice versa. If the CCD doesn't have good coverage above it, it can slow down because it's reaching a different thermal temperature than the package and everything else that's on the substrate. So you want to make sure you have good coverage over the components that matter. So let's go ahead and do this first. I'm also using the KPX, and I want to point this out. This is a bit more liquidy than other thermal pastes. Some thermal pastes are very hard to apply. They're very thick when they're at room temperature, and then they thin out. They get thinner when they get warmer to allow it to flow. That's, if you've ever heard about thermal paste kind of like bedding back in the day, that's what that kind of meant. A really heavy paste, the first time you put it under load and get it nice and hot, will then flow into all those cracks and crevices. Now remember, the only purpose of thermal paste is to fill the imperfections between the heat spreader and the cooler. And you want to make sure that, that there's full contact everywhere. There's peaks and valleys, and if you look at them microscopically, it is like having two Grand Canyons try and meet up. And anywhere there's high spots and low spots not touching is lost efficiency when it comes to heat transfer. So the only thing that thermal paste does is fill those gaps, and it's formulated in a way to actually transfer heat as efficiently as possible in a liquid form. Now the KPX stuff is very, very liquidy because it's also designed to be able to operate in sub-zero temperatures because of extreme overclocking. But I'm using it today because I want to see it spread. Just know that this would probably look very different if we were using like thermal Grizzly stuff, which is very heavy. In fact, what I normally will do, because I like to use the spread method where you use like a spatula to spread it, I usually have to use a heat gun to heat up the IHS on the CPU, or potentially hold it up against the tube. Otherwise it's so thick it won't spread. It's like trying to spread peanut butter you left in the fridge. It's just not good. So the KPX is designed to, right now at room temperature, give us a good idea of what the spread would look like on other thermal pastes under heat. So I just wanted to point that out there. If this looks like it's spreading super easily, that's because it is a very liquidy design. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and get started. I had to make these, they're not perfect. The AMD one's okay, it's not bad. The Intel one, very ugly. You can see I missed on one of my holes, don't worry about it, it's fine. But yeah, we had to clear obviously the caps and stuff that are on the board, like this row of caps, the chokes, this cap. So I had to make sure that I was able to, you know, get it touching the CPU. Wait, are we touching on the top right here? We are touching on the top right there. We'll be right back. I gotta grind that down a little bit. We're touching that row, I missed it. It's not pretty, but it's mine. I feel like in Lilo and Stitch when she made the doll, but it was all like ugly and made out of straw and stuff. Okay, we're good in all directions. No, it hits in that corner right there. Right there. Okay, hold on. Be right back. I don't know, all I see right now is the cheat. Okay, now you can see it. It falls on the CPU. We good. Okay. All right, so as I started to say, we shall start with the Pea method. The Pea method essentially just says, put a pea-sized drop of thermal paste right in the center of your CPU. See that? See, it's very, very liquidy. That's what I was saying. Like normal thermal paste just doesn't come out that easy. All right, we'll start with AMD, and that's fairly good coverage right there. I mean, these prongs, they're weird. I don't know why AMD did that. I guess it's because of the amount of SMDs that are on the die right there. But in that design, they clearly have, I mean, the prongs are connected, but it's very difficult to ever get the paste to spread to there without just falling down in that chasm. But keep tightening that one down. Yeah, can't get it to spread all the way to the corners, but that's fine. You can see it starting to thin out right there, which is good. There's still plenty of thickness in the middle, so that would spread under heat. That actually looks pretty good. All right, Intel time. So you can see the Pea method right there. Had a very similar amount of spread as we did on the AMD one, but that leaves a lot of areas that are not covered. However, it does pretty much cover where the IO or the die itself is, but still, I think we would want full coverage on the IHS. But remember, one of the things we're trying to find out right here is what is the appropriate coverage that doesn't lead to a massive amount of waste? Because you could put a bigger P on there and then you would just put 50% of it over the side and then that's just wasted. And then clean up later gets down the socket and all that. All right, so Pea method for AMD, I would give a green check mark. it would be the least wasteful, and I think we're good. I don't think, especially on AM5 and AM4 as well, I don't think we need any, maybe a little bit bigger P on AM4. AM4 is a little bit bigger of a heat spreader. It's about the size of the whole opening of the cage. So there you go. For AMD, P method, check mark. For Intel, P method, no. I'm just gonna say no. There's no in the middle. I think we're just either going yes or no. So this would be a red thumbs down or red X. There we go, red X. All right, so here we go. The line method, which I think is not going to be beneficial for AMD. It's literally just a line of paste. Because I think what's gonna happen is we're gonna push a lot out on the corners. I do think it'll be most beneficial for Intel. And you can see I'm trying to make it just about the length of the core underneath. All right, so we'll do AMD first. Boop. Has kind of flowed off the ends right there. Still not bad. I think when it heats up under load, like you would get more of that oozing into the sides. Something I don't think, this clearly used about twice as much thermal paste as the P method. And I don't think it gave us that much better coverage because we're just losing a lot of it over the edge. So still don't think the line method would be an AMD approved, in my opinion. I'm gonna give that a red X. But Intel, I expect this to actually be the better method. Now, I have a theory about why I'm not getting it on this side like I want. Because I started tightening down this side and I probably tightened it down too much, which made it kind of like, I don't know what the right word would be. We kind of like pushed it out rather than going straight down. We kind of went down at an angle, which made a ramp. So that's still okay. Like honestly, that would spread just fine under load. But you can see we lost some at the top right there. We didn't get that corner. I do believe under load, see how I've clearly got the mechanism working well. I'm pushing on that and nothing's happening. But that would spread under load. So I'm gonna say green check mark on Intel because we clearly have way more coverage than we did with the P method. All right, bend over. The X method is pretty simple. Just draw a thin X that goes from corner to corner. The hard part's trying to get it even. Like you can see I'd stick around that line than that line, so I'm just gonna beep. Okay, I think that's a lot more than we need, or as Derek from Vice Grip Garage would say, way too much. Perfect. Okay, same thing over here in AMD, just it's a much smaller X. Boop, boop, boop. Okay. This method I expect, I don't know what to expect anymore. I think it'll be a little bit wasteful, but I guess we'll see. So we'll start with AMD on this one, how's that? There we go. Yeah, wow, okay, I would say X so far is the best for AMD here. Makes sense, because we're getting it concentrated in the corners where we want it. But look at that. To me, that feels like the best, most square spread so far, which makes sense, because the X is technically like a square, right? So it's thin on the corners, but it's more concentrated in the middle where the X meets, so that gives you more density there for it to spread. So that X feels like a combination of like P method with line method, to be honest. Okay, that worked out pretty well. Here we go. Intel time. I expect it to be pretty good. Oh, I wanted to see the, oh. There. Okay. All right, X method seems to actually, X gonna give it to you. All right, X method so far, I think is a green check on both. That looks pretty good. Looks like our loss over the edges is fairly minimal. I mean, there is a fair amount that squishes over the edges, but it's not a lot of waste. Honestly, it looks pretty good. Another good sign of really good bond between the two is even with nothing holding it down, that sucker is really, like, look at that. That's actually really, really good. That's better than the others so far. Took more force to get that off than the others. But it means it just had a really good gap fill, if you will, between the two surfaces. All right, so the last is the spread method. In fact, the KPX even comes with the spreader. Now, when we do like XOC overclocking and like Sub-Zero, we spread that on purpose. We wanna make it as thin as possible. We wanna make sure it's even as possible. And the P method, if there's any piece of the die, like specifically on GPUs, that's showing without thermal paste touching it, that will be a hot spot that will screw you with your overclocks. A little bit different on CPU, but that's why I don't think the spread method on CPU is totally necessary, but it's the way I do it. So the way I do it is I do a line across the top. It's gotta be kind of thick so that it can have enough to make it all the way across, and then just take the spreader and then literally just, it's like frosting a cake. Now this will be harder on thick pastes because it doesn't want to spread too easily, but this is going to be without a doubt the most wasteful method. Because you can, look how much is still left on the spatula. Like, that's probably just a little bit less than the initial Pea method. So the amount of waste is gonna be pretty extreme. So same thing on the Intel, but I like to go the long way because it's a shorter distance for it to have to go. And I tend to do like a double row like that. Let's see if that was enough. Not to mention, I've still got what's left from the AMD side. And you don't want to push down too hard, otherwise you'll just, like, see I'm pushing really hard and I wiped all that away. I gotta go back. This is easily the most peace of mind method because you know it's getting to all the spots, but it's definitely wasteful. Now I don't have to worry about getting everything freaking covered because it will still spread, but there's still a lot of paste there. You can see just how much is on there. And as soon as I get the plate down and mounted, I think we're gonna see an extreme amount of oozing, if you will, around the side. So let's go AMD first. Yeah, so in fact, it spread and oozed out so far, it jumped the gap between the CPU to the hold down mechanism, and it's actually on top of the hold down mechanism. So even though we got a really good spread, because we had such a good spread, look how far it jumped, right? And I could technically tighten these down more. Like it's almost all the way to the edge of the imprint on the hold down bracket. So that is not ideal, just because of the fact that we are wasting a lot of paste, and that being on top of the bracket, when you go to open it, it's gonna like grilled cheese spread out, and then that's how you get it down in the socket, and that's what you don't want. So for Intel, it'll be the same sort of thing. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see, but it's definitely like cake frosting all around the side, which I guess isn't as bad as I would have expected on the Intel. You can see there's still a lot of thickness in the middle there. As it heats up, it's gonna flow more. Same thing with the AMD. So this is why the spread method is the best peace of mind, but it is by far the most wasteful when it comes to how much paste is actually necessary. So let's recap. Pea method, green check mark on AMD, red X on Intel, 12th gen and newer. Anything 11th gen and older, which is a square, Pea method would be fine. But on the rectangular CPUs, that's a red X. Line method on AMD and Intel, technically a green check mark, but on AMD a little more wasteful than Intel because of the fact that the Intel, right, a rectangle and a line will just spread out sideways, which is fine. But on the square, for whatever reason, it didn't give me as much spread as I would have wanted. X method on both, like double green check marks. It actually worked really, really well. There wasn't nearly as much waste as I thought there was going to be. And it guaranteed full coverage. Like you saw, it went to the corners on both, and it doubles up the paste in the middle, which is where you would need it. So the little bit of paste that kind of like the prongs of the X get into the corners, and then in the middle where it's more concentrated, it definitely spread out in a rectangular form for both. And for AMD, it was a square because the X was a square, and for Intel, it's a little longer, right? Both of those were great. Minimal waste, some over the side, but not terrible. The spread method. If the premise here is whether or not you get good coverage, then yes, it is a green check mark that you get good coverage, but it's a orange asterisk on it that it's very wasteful. You're wasting a lot of paste. I mean, right now, if I take this off, I'll show you. We'll do this in real time on the Intel here. When I take it off, you're gonna see just a lot of thermal paste. Like, dang, it's taking the whole post off on that corner right there. Okay, you're gonna see a lot of paste on both the acrylic and on the CPU. And you see, it didn't even have as good of a suction, which is interesting to me. Probably because there was just too much. Couldn't get a good vacuum in there. It didn't push the air out with it. Look at how much waste is on the outsides right there, and look how much is still built up in there. Like, I feel like I could do this with it right now. Like, I feel like I could just, if I scoop all that up, we're not far off from the first Pea method that we had. And that's just the waste. And look, that doesn't include what's over here. So yeah, peace of mind, but uses a lot more. All right, for AMD, I guess we could test that real quick. Again, just a lot of waste. And we know that alone would be enough for this CPU. And I'll show you, because look. If you want peace of mind, do it that way. But if you want to use less paste and know you're getting good coverage, the X method uses a little more than the line method, but it guarantees full coverage. All right, the most unnecessary video I've made in a long time, but it gave me a reason to use the grinder and the torch and tools. All right, guys, thanks for watching. What's your favorite method? If you don't like any of these, I'm curious as to how you're doing it, because that's a very, I don't know how you're doing it. So tell me.